a single
Conversation.
It could change your whole life.
INCRadio Chatline.
Conversations that matter.
This is what I ask. Let me always dwell in the temple of the Lord till I
Hello, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone tuning in with us, whichever part of the world you are in. Welcome to INC Radio's chat line where we have conversations that matter. I'm your host for the day, also John Cruz, live here from Rockford, Illinois. And joining me here in our talk for today is one of my close friends from the I don't know if I should call it the hand state or the mitten state because I've heard both.
Either works. They both look like this. Like this. Hi, everyone. Tony Rose Valenzuela here, live in Sterling Heights. Yeah, I'm in Sterling. I always have to think about where I am because I'm always everywhere. So I'm in Sterling Heights today, joining all of you for a wonderful topic. Hopefully, a wonderful topic.
Mhm. Yeah, and first off, thank you for joining here today. And actually, the idea for this topic, I'm pretty sure if you're watching us, you can probably see the title of our topic. It's a term that I came across just the other day, and actually, it's something that uh, like I've experienced before that I didn't even know there was a term for it. So, the term that I came across is the quarter life crisis. So think of like midlife crisis, but like quarter life, quarter life crisis. Now, what comes to mind? Like, what do you think of when you hear that term?
Becoming an adult, like just learning how to be an adult and do adult. Because when I think of quarter life, so I'm thinking, okay, typically when we hear midlife crisis, we think of like maybe in your 40s, 50s, right?
Yeah,
But then quarter life is somewhere in your 20s, like between 20 and 30s, right? That's
yeah,
like your quarter life. So yeah, I feel like that's the biggest shift that I can think of, is just becoming an adult and learning how to be an adult and trying to figure out how to do grown up things.
I would say you're. I know you're pretty much. You're very much on the bullseye with that one, because yeah, it's like pretty much like a midlife crisis. It's that, but in your mid 20s. From the term when I looked it up, the definition it said mid 20s to early 30s is usually when this happens. So I'm kind of thinking maybe since it says mid 20s, so maybe 25 to 35, maybe. It's like when you kind of
Sounds like it,
experience.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, when
Yeah.
you experience. And I'm not gonna reveal our ages, but we're pretty much smack dab in the middle of that, as here in the panel at least. So I looked up the definition. It said that a quarter life crisis is a period of questioning and uncertainty that can occur in a person's mid 20s to early 30s. So, like you said, pretty much a midlife crisis, but on 25, age 25, because that's also a transitionary period where you're trying to figure out, like how to be an adult, pretty much with the new responsibility. So now that we've sort of defined what a quarter life crisis is, would you say that you have experienced that, or maybe experiencing quarter life crisis?
I believe so. I believe I was trying to think of whether it's experienced or it's experiencing. I think it's experiencing. I feel like it's an ongoing thing, crisis. But crisis
I
sounds like
know.
panic
Yeah.
though. I'm not panicking. I think I'm just
Mhm.
evaluating
Yeah, I know
evaluating a lot
crisis
of
is
things.
sort of like it's like a heavy term. I mean, a heavy word to attach to it. So it's not necessarily a crisis, so to speak. Yeah, it's
It could be. It could be for some people. Some people might be freaking out, but
mhm,
just me personally, I don't think I'm freaking out. But I think you could be having a freak out. You could be panicking. Some people might be panicking, which
mhm.
is okay, I guess.
So how did you like? I'm trying to get into like your thought process here. Like, why would you say, or how would you say that you're going through like a quarter life crisis?
What I understand, at least from that idea of midlife crisis, because sometimes you would see that on TV shows, or that's like a
Mm-hmm.
plot line for some TV show or some movie, right, where the main character is going through some midlife crisis, and they start buying things to make them feel a little different, or they start wondering or like asking questions like, oh, like what am I going to do from here? I feel like it can be similar, like that, similarly, where you start to, I guess, try to wonder what's going to happen in the next X amount of years, right? You start to question like, where do I want to go from here? Or like these, you just feel these different shifts and these different, like what you mentioned earlier, you're going from one period of your life to the next. Because typically 25 to 30, typically, okay, I'm just generalizing. It's not everybody's timeline or their case, but
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like the period of where they're probably done with school. They're probably, in some kind of romantic relationship, maybe thinking about settling down, maybe thinking about getting married. Now, of course, that's not everybody's story. That's not everybody's timeline, right? But those are some of the things that we start to think about. I think of my older friends, like when I was younger. My older friends are my older cousins or my older siblings, and that idea of like turning 30 was just like, oh no, you're turning 30, you're old. You hear stuff like that, and maybe that starts to get you thinking of different things like, am I old? Like, am I, I feel like a lot of it is, you just start to ask yourself a lot of questions that are not questioning yourself, but maybe evaluating, a lot of evaluating and self-assessment maybe.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, EJ?
I'm sorry, what's that?
No, what about you? I'm just curious if that has been your experience, in terms
So I
of like.
have a similar experience. Like you said, it's a period where you're moving from one stage of life to the next, and that first thing that you said is a common question that I've asked myself. What am I gonna do from here? Like when you finish school and you finish studying, and like for me, I never really had. I know some people, they have, like from childhood they have that dream of like, oh, this is what I want to be when I grow up, so they cater like all of their like learning towards that certain career, right?
Mhm.
Like for me, I didn't have anything like that where like, I never thought of like, oh, I want to be a doctor when I grow up, or I want to be a lawyer when I grow up. So when I finished school, I definitely was more, well, or when I finished, sorry, high school, to be more specific. When I finished high school and it was time to pick my college courses, my mind was like, well, I don't know. What am I gonna do? Like, what course am I gonna take in college? So actually, I've been hopping on like different like courses,
Mhm.
or just trying out like different courses in college. And I would say even now, it's like what the definition is. It's a period of like where I'm not certain I like like if this is like what I wanna do. If this is what I want to study for the next 4 years. Since that's like, I feel like for me that's like a big it's like a big investment to to make. But I would say being uh indecisive, is that the right term to use for it, is like one of the things that I've noticed that made me think I may be going through this like quarter life crisis that they're talking about, because I feel like like um I need to keep like changing courses, because I want to make good use of my time. And I feel like I might be running out of time. I don't know if that's a similar feeling you've had, like you've the feeling of, I'm running out of time, I need to make a decision now.
Well, I think that's what it is. It's in terms of crisis. If you even just comparing the midlife and for the quarter life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both of them are kind of like a wake up call to, oh, this much time has elapsed. This much
Mm-hmm.
time has passed. am I satisfied with what's going on in my life, or and that's when you start to kind of evaluate. So, and it's not I wouldn't say it's just necessarily um periods of your life where you start to feel those shifts or those changes, but even when certain you go through certain experiences, I think that kind of give you that wake up call, like the reality of time. I think anytime we're reminded of how much time we really have, I feel like that's always a period that we kind of go like, oh, you get kind of jolted a little bit, right? Like when you go through, like, I know it's a little bit on the heavier side, but potentially loss. I know that there are times where that's kind of jolted me to kind of think of, oh, is this something that I really want to keep doing? Is my lifestyle, the things that I'm going on, is this something that I really want to keep up with? So I think anytime you're slapped with that reality of time and how much you think you have of it, or how much time has elapsed, just kind of that realization can really make you start to think a little differently about what you're doing at that current moment. So it could be anything. It could be moving maybe to a different place, or could be like what we mentioned before, when you graduate, right? That's kind of like a marker where you're like, okay, now that I've finished that, what what's next? What's going to be the next thing? Because sometimes it's not that easy to go from graduating, getting a degree, going into the career that you want, right? Sometimes people hop around a little bit in terms of what they want to pursue after getting that degree, because your degree might be a little bit more general as opposed to focus, right? Like you have people who have dreamt about being doctors, and then they go on to do that. But sometimes maybe, let's say for me, if I majored in music, or if I majored in English, is something like that, has a wider net to cast, where I might question, like, oh, do I want to be here? Do I want to be here? Like, is this something that it
Mhm.
just, I feel like it just depends on what is the trigger, I guess. What is the trigger that's happening in your life that will make you more urgent, or make you feel the need to act on something a little bit quicker?
So what would you say was the trigger for you to that made you go, oh, like I need to, like I need to start making progress like now.
Whenever I see the passage of time, or whenever, like things that I mentioned earlier, you go through different experiences where you're kind of like, oh, and it makes you step back and pause, and you don't want to, at least for me, what I don't want to do is, I don't want to be on autopilot, in the sense where I just go through the motions, and it becomes this routine thing where I'm not stepping back and asking myself, is this the best of what I can give myself, of what I want to give out in terms of maybe my relationships with other people, and my different responsibilities, right? Whether it's for my work, for church, for the things that I do for my faith. Um, yeah, a lot of it is just constant self-reflection, I guess. Like I'm just but that's me. That's
Mhm, mhm,
that's unique to my experience. That might not be everybody. Somebody else's trigger could be a lot of what we've mentioned already. It could be a lot of things that will get you to step back. But I think a lot of what's happening now, that it's so prevalent, which we did talk about last week, was social media. I feel like social media can kind of get you to be a little bit more panicky when you see other people like,
mhm,
oh, okay, like all these people are getting engaged, all these people are getting, graduating, whatever it may be. And it may not necessarily be that you want that thing that they are posting about, but it gets you to think. You do have that natural tendency to just kind of compare yourself, like, okay, these are people who are probably about your age. And then you're like, okay, where am I at now? Am I okay where I am at right now? And that's when the crisis, I think, starts to build, when you start to feel the panic, I
mhm.
guess.
Yeah, like I don't know. I agree with the comparison part because I feel like for me that's been one of like my biggest problems with of or one of the biggest causes of like this for me. And social media did not help with that at all. Like seeing the different highlights that are my friends posted, oh, they're so and so is engaged now. This friend of mine from high school, oh, he's getting married now. Where like he's getting married now. He has a stable career. He has like all these different things, and then I look at myself like, like like it feels like he's almost at the finish line. I'm still at the starting at the starting base. Like comparison has been like one of the biggest problems for me. And another thing that I would say, how you said it jolted me into into really self reflection. It's like uh, if my parents are watching, I'm sorry, but they're like seeing my parents like get older, as well. Like I have these feelings of like, or I wanna be able to do these things for them, right? I know the kind of like places my dad wants to go to. I know the kind of things my mom wants, and I want to be able to, like take my dad to those places that he wants to go to. Take like have my mom do like a shopping spree, like where she doesn't have to worry about like oh, I don't know, might not be in our budget, right? Like I want to be able to do those things for them, and I think that's like primarily what's like really jolting me to like really take action now. But sometimes I do feel like I don't know what I'm supposed to what I'm supposed to do, or like it's me trying to do like different thing, make progress in like different areas of like, but also feeling like even if I reach one goal, I still feel like that's not enough, like kind of a little bit restless, if I would say. But going, I actually want to ask you like how like how experiencing that affected you, like did it push you to do more action? Did it have like maybe some not so good like effects on you?
That's an intense question, so I'm going to divert it quickly to say hello to some
Oh,
people in the live chat. Hello to Mario Oka, who's tuning in with us, as well as a Christian Rhoda. Radka Hayag is also there saying, I'm still undecided. Yeah, I'm going to talk about indecisiveness in a little bit. Hello to Lani. Hello to Pauline, Zenaida, and I miss, and Rizalita Disuyo, who's tuning in from the Philippines. So thanks for staying up with us. Okay, so I prepare myself a little bit. So to answer your question, how has it affected me? So Atamai, how old is middle age? I decline to answer that because I don't want to cause any offense to anyone who's watching.
that might be relative.
Yeah, let's just say that's relative, Mylene. So how has it affected me? I'm what I will say about myself is that the reason why I tend to be indecisive is because, and I think a lot of people will be able to relate to this, is that you don't want to get it wrong, right? Like when you feel indecisive about something, you don't want to get the wrong thing. Whether it's we're talking about career, whether it's could be anything that you're trying to pursue. You don't want to get the wrong thing. But one thing that I've been kind of learning the hard way is that you won't really know until you're there, right? You won't really know until you've kind of tried it, like whether it's career, whether it's because even as simply as going through school, right? When you're going through school, and I know this has happened to a good amount of my friends, they go through this course, they could get up to their associates, and then they realize, I don't think this is for me. And sometimes people don't have that moment right away. Sometimes it happens a lot later on. And the effects of that can be like, oh man, did I waste all that time on this thing? Shout out to the next level you. That was, I feel like that was one of their topics. Like, I remember saying that somewhere, like, did I waste time? Did I waste time doing that thing? And it, again, it get I feel like what makes it a crisis is that you start to ask those questions. You
Mhm.
start to get into that kind of panic mode, and that's happened to me, whether it's been stuff that I've tried to actively pursue, or when I was in between decisions of accepting things, like when I the position that I'm at right now, it is a perfect example. I kind of, I don't want to say agonized over it, but I didn't say yes right away, right? Because of course, as Christians, what we like to do, we say our prayers. We want to be able to be confident when we make a decision. But sometimes when you're going into a decision, you might have the tendency to overthink, or you might have the tendency to overshoot that idea of, like, oh, uh, this kind of scenario could happen, or this kind of scenario could happen, but you won't really know until you're there, right? And I took that chance, and I told myself that I would, because it was an opportunity. It was a great opportunity for me. Yes, there were things that came with it that are difficult, which is true for a lot of things in life. Nothing will come easy, right? There are going to be trade-offs. Shout out to one of our, last topics. There are going to be things that, you know you go into something, you have to make a decision, and there will be some things that you'll have to deal with when you get there. But to kind of go back to that idea of how does it affect you, I think a lot of the time what happens to all of us is that we just have that internal dialogue that just doesn't shut up. Like,
Mhm.
it just keeps talking and talking and talking, and you're like, shh, like, shh, give me a second. I need to I need to breathe first. Okay, breathe first, and then just kind of reflect on the things that you're thinking, right?
Mhm.
I would say how it's affected me in terms of crisis is just a lot of thoughts that don't need to be there, a lot of thoughts that aren't necessarily true, right? You get to start thinking these things, like, if I go back to that idea of this position, I was not qualified for this position at all, and yet it was still, presented to me. And I want to shout out to Faith and Melody yesterday for their topic. Somebody mentioned that in the show, where sometimes, I think it was Des Asenas. Shout out to Des. Um, Sometimes you'll be presented these things, and you should take that as, like, a, if not a compliment, you should take it as a good thing, as opposed to overthinking it. Because once you start overthinking it, then you can kind of, it gets away from you, and that's when it gets to that crisis point, like imposter syndrome. Like,
Mhm.
imposter syndrome, kind of like that thing, that's something that can definitely affect the decision making process. But that's something, at least in my experience, if we're talking about crisis, is how it can affect you is definitely full on mental stuff that, if you don't catch yourself, if you don't um, step in and take a step back and kind of reflect on the things that you're thinking, you might get lost in it. You might get caught up in it. And um, that's what we pray for too. We always pray for clarity. We always pray for understanding, and to make the right decision. And eventually, we make a decision, right? We need to. But that's how it's affected me. I don't know how it's affected you, EJ. That's the most recent example that I can think of for mine.
I would say just for me and the, like as you mentioned, like uh affecting us, like how it's affecting us, it can affect us mentally. It's like for me, it's that feeling of, or the feeling of I have to keep going, but I'm also sort of burnt out from like
Mm,
thinking of, oh, I have to, I have to make progress in this area of my life, but I also can't, I can't neglect this area of my life. I have to make progress on this as well. And before I say my answer, we're gonna say hello to one of our friends joining us here today in the panel. You might have heard her already, but I'm gonna let her introduce herself, so go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, EJ. Hi, Tony. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Melvi Tamayo here from Central Valley, California. I thought I'd say hi and greet all of you and just hop in for a few minutes. So where we at, guys?
Yay! I'm
I know this
happy.
is an interesting topic for me because it's gonna take me back in time, actually.
Have you, oh, Molly, have you experienced the what we've been talking about, the quarter life crisis?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I was constantly worried during that age. The uncertainty literally scared me. So, it you learn as you get older, experiences, growth on a daily basis will teach you a lot of things in life. You just have to remain focused. You just have to continue to remain positive and do what you can. Of course, in a practical way, because sometimes when we overload ourselves with a lot of either information or multitasking so much instead of just doing one thing at a time and setting a goal for ourselves will deviate us from actually getting to where we need to be. So we just need to worry less, trust the process, as we always say, right? And do your best, and make each day count. That's what I can say based on my experiences in life. Because as a young, even when I was younger, I don't know, I was always worried about even today, tomorrow, the future. But I realized that, when you worry so much, you can only also do so much. And when you do that, you also impact your health, your mental health, right? Your emotional health. And so it's best to just tackle practical things one thing at a time, something that you can do on a daily basis and set that goal for yourself. And don't do so many things all at once.
Don't try the
That's
Anna,
what I
right?
can
I feel like that's I feel like that's where I went wrong, like before, like trying to do everything all at once, all at the same time. I have like, like when the motivation like kicks in and you try to do like everything right away,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. But you know what? You know what would help is if you write things down,
Mm-hmm.
journalizing. Because when you have that checklist in front of you, and when you set a goal for yourself, just say, for example, we've done this in the past, our daily habits, right? Let's say incorporating healthy diet or exercise or simple things like that. And when you have a checklist in front of you and you're able to also manage your time, you see your progress, then it makes it easier for you to now dive into something a little bit more complex in the future, because you have to start somewhere. It's like driving a stick shift, right? It's hard at first and you will die a couple of times and you can get frustrated. It's frustrating, especially when you're going uphill and then you die and then you roll backwards and you're getting worried and you're freaking out. So you have to learn how to navigate also your emotions and deal with that. And when we are young, or when I was young, just younger, just like you guys, like I said, the uncertainty can lead to a lot of worries, can lead a lot of anxieties. But when you're not overthinking and you just have to find your groove, just like also with singing or dancing, you need to find your strengths and apply that to what you want to do in your life. And if you're focused, or if you already know what you want, then go get it. Simple as that. Go get it and do something about it. Simple as that. You don't have to say, "Oh, what if?" Or and if somehow along the process, because I have failed so many times, to be honest with you, it was heartbreaking. When I look back in my past, I told myself, or I tell myself even sometimes, I said, "How in the world did you even get there and then get in the process and then fail so many times?" But yet now when I look back, I had to go through that process. I had to fail multiple times. There was a reason why. And so now on a daily basis, I am now trusting the process, and I'm doing my best to think and analyze the situation and come up with solutions that thorough practical with whatever problems or trials or challenges that I'm going through. And
Kind of
when
like
you do that, yeah, like one bite at a time, then it's so much easier to chew it, right? Instead of shoving it all in your mouth. And we get either stomach ache, indigestion, or we start throwing up. So, sometimes I think of it like I think of life like that. And I would just smile and laugh. And now I would just say, I can't control that. I can only control the internal factors, what's within us, what's within me. And well, whatever's outside, it'll happen. But when it comes to our decisions, when it comes to our prerogatives, when it comes to our decisions in life, we just have to be mindful about what it is that what we want, so we can, live a fulfilling life in these challenging days. Because life nowadays is difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It's been a struggle, and it will continue to be a struggle. But we just have to be stronger and try to, defeat it, and still try to be happy and live life. And don't hesitate to ask for help. That was another problem I had, is when um when I have when I'm bogged down with so many
mm,
problems, and I tell myself, oh, I can do this. I don't need anybody's help. I don't want to bother anyone.
mm,
But even just having someone to talk to about it, having someone to vent your problems with, like friends and family, your support system, which we, greatly have even at church, right? So, when you have people who are very supportive of what you go through in life, and know that they're there for you, it's so much better than trying to tackle it on your own. So I encourage you also to ask for help when you need it, or even talk to somebody. And there are a lot of experts out there with whatever it is that you go through in life.
I
So
second that.
yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. I second that point about asking for help, because I feel like that's also like a part where I was lacking in, where it's that feeling of I have to figure this out myself. I can't ask. It's not that I can't, but I shouldn't. I shouldn't ask my parents for help. I shouldn't ask my siblings, my friends for help. Like I should be able to figure this out like on my own, because otherwise I won't be able to be an adult, right? I'll be able to be an adult if I can't figure this out myself. And there were times where it felt like it was like, looking back, it was like a self-imposed like isolation that I did like on myself, where I felt like I really felt alone, like I couldn't connect with anyone. And there were times where, like, uh deep down I was saying, I wish someone would just ask me how I'm doing. you know like, and but like, on the outside, what I was doing was I was trying, like, I was sort of like, not really pushing everyone away, but I was trying to, I'm okay, I'm just gonna figure this out myself. Trying to do that. But like you said, Bobby, it's like, it's not wrong to ask for help, especially if you need it, right? Especially if you need help figuring things out. And it's something that I just learned, or not really just learned, but something that I started to do more recently, is just admit that, well, I really don't know where to start with this. Since you have experience in this, what can you tell me? Like, what's an information you can share with me that has helped you in this field?
Start
And,
small.
mm,
Start small. Definitely start there. When it came to my workout routine, and I haven't, let's say I didn't work out for over a decade. But don't get me wrong, I stay active. I'm constantly, walking, doing stuff, running errands and whatnot. But in terms of getting healthier and managing weight, for example, I had to start small to where now I would delegate at least 15 to 30 minutes, and I have my alarm on my phone set just specifically for that. Even at least 5 days a week. That's my goal. And no matter what I'm doing, it doesn't matter where I'm at, I would now that it's on my alarm every day, then I'm now holding myself accountable for that progress because I want, as like I said, as we get older, a lot of things change physically, mentally, emotionally. And this quarter life crisis is basically your peak to where you're still uncovering a lot of things about yourself. You're still trying to figure out what you want in your life, where you want to be, what you want to become, all sorts of things. But first do what's in front of you. What is it? Let me ask you, EJ, right now, what is your main goal? Let's say, is it finances? Is it probably job or career in
Yeah,
life or
that's
in
pretty much
pursuit?
it.
That's it,
Exactly.
right? Then dig into yourself and ask, what is it? What kind of job are you seeking?
Mhm.
Maybe you're good at something, you can look there. Or you can also speak to a counselor because sometimes in school, and in school they can help a lot. Let's say you tell them, I'm, like in this, it's funny because I have a degree in accounting, but then I love media and communication. So my parents were like, what were you doing? Why didn't you just go to this major and you would have been you know and I said, well, I guess I can still go back to school, right? And just do double major. So, and in terms of, let's say with me as well, communications, I love to communicate. But when I was young, I was complete opposite. As I've mentioned before, I did not want to communicate. But now I've realized that communication is very important and crucial in every aspect of our lives. So, how am I improving this? By reading books, by educating myself, by learning from others as well, following individuals who are who are masterful at it. So I'm learning from them as well because like us here in the media, this actually helps a whole lot. And one of the reasons why I encourage young adults or even brethren, right, from our church to join or even just be a guest is because one, it helps with communication skills. Number two, it helps express our thoughts and emotions and feelings. Number three, we have a support system. And number four, above all, we get to have our family and friends here on the radio. This is how I met you guys, and I'm so grateful to have another new set of friends who can inspire me as well, who can help me with the little or big things in life. And believe this or not, I have learned from this broadcast. And so I said, oh, I hope one day I can be part of it. And look where the process led me. I wasn't expecting it, but here we are now. So start small. Look first within you. What is it that you're good at? I know you're good at something. I know you're good at doing rundown. Both you and Tony. Whenever I read your rundown, I say, "Wow, look at this,
Like we're
amazing."
breaking the fourth wall with this.
So right, it looks like you're both good at writing. You're also both good at communications. You're both good at interacting with people. So there you have it. From outside perspective or outside observance, that's what I see. Personally, I would like to get to know you more, but I know that you're both filled with kindness and you have aspirations and dreams in life, which all of us hope that everybody would be able to achieve, as well as for the both of you. And just, continue on doing what you're doing because you guys are awesome.
I feel like what Malia just said about just starting, because I feel like that's for me. I've turned down a lot of, like, well, not turned down, but I didn't apply for a lot of jobs because like when they list down the qualifications, that things that you need to be able to do, there's always that one qualification there where I'll ask myself, can I do that? Like, like, do I
Here's the
have
thing
the
about
skill
that.
to do that?
I'm going to give you a tip. I'm going to tell you now. Somebody or one of my bosses who retired before said this to me. Don't let an opportunity pass you because, in the end, anyway, you'll be trained to do so. You'll be trained
Mhm.
to do the job. And that's where you will discover yourself, whether if it is something that you really want to pursue.
Mhm. Is there are jobs that
And
you know.
yeah, no,
Mhm.
really. Let's say you went through the interview and they said, "All right, we'll give you an opportunity," and here you are being anxious because you think, "Well, I feel like I'm missing that couple of." I was looking at the job description. Don't ever think like that, because once you feed your mind that negativity, then of course the outcome will be your heart won't be in it. But
Mhm.
here's the company giving you that opportunity to actually excel in that on that aspect. And once you have that opportunity, grab it, because that's how we also learn and grow. Just like our first jobs. Honestly, I was 14. I got hired at a printing press to do all sorts of things. Did I know how to operate machines? Did I know how to do things that they were? No. But I got trained to do it and I
Mhm.
got good at it because I took notes, I was paying attention, and I wanted to earn money so I can buy stuff. So I did what I could to actually absorb everything that was taught to me because I had a goal. I wanted to save money for something, for like a nice expensive pair of jeans, for example, or a nice
I
backpack,
understand. I don't
So,
understand that that
yeah,
that this.
when you're young, you don't really think, the investments and savings and all that,
You're
right?
thinking
I
of like,
believe
oh,
you
I
have to
need
be very
new
thrifty.
clothes, maybe new shoes.
I had an eye.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's a really nice pair of jeans. But I looked at the price. I said, really? $80 for this? How
But
many
sometimes
hours
you just
of
convince
work?
yourself, like, you know what? Let's just. It's a gift. It's a gift for my own birthday, like for me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we have to treat ourselves. Tony's been quiet over there. I feel like I'm doing a lot of the, I'm doing a lot of the talking. I'm getting embarrassed now.
No,
But
I wanted
he
to
does
give you
fine.
opportunity because I know that I wasn't sure how long you could be on with us. That's why I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak. My mind was stuck on the way that you described, how the process can be earlier. I just keep going to that thing of like that idea of like, yeah, sometimes it feels like throwing up because that's really how it feels like. I do want to go back to that point though that you mentioned, Melvi, of doing like one thing at a time, and how that can relate also to what you just said, because when we're younger, right, we might think that we want all these different things, and it can be kind of hard for us to figure out what we want sometimes, right? Like being able to being presented with so many different, I guess, like what you mentioned, opportunities or choices, right? Sometimes that also can be paralyzing, and you get into that mode of like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Like, should I go this way? Should I go this way? So in stuff that you've experienced, like in terms of figuring out what you want, when you're in that moment of crisis, let's say, like you feel stuck, right? You feel like you're uncertain. How did you deal with that? How did you deal with that, being able to kind of figure out what you want? What were the steps that you took to get to anywhere?
That's a tough question. Because I have experience being I felt like I was a juggler at some point in my life where I was all over the place. I didn't know which direction to take. And one of the professors that was very helpful to me back in college told me that sometimes you have to go through that in life to to learn from your own mistakes. And how did I overcome that is what I'm telling you now. She told me the same thing. What is it that you want in your life? So I started jotting down what I really want. And then from there I went ahead and checked them off as I worked hard every day to achieve them. And right now, I'm still doing the same thing. And believe it or not, sometimes even in a present, I still overthink. And whenever I catch myself that, I would just, shake my head and I would walk outside, and sometimes I would just take a walk and appreciate the nature and reset, and then again learn from my own mistakes. So, we're not expert in this. Everybody's life will be different depending on the path you choose. All I can say is just don't lose yourself by getting there. From point A to point B, you will encounter a lot of challenges. You will encounter a lot of even individuals or people who you thought would be supportive, but in the end, maybe not so. You will also encounter to a point where you might end up losing friends because you're now getting to that level of certainty and achievements and prosper in life that maybe some will never come to understand or comprehend because they're at that point they're still stuck. But I had to really sit down and think. And to be honest, what I really did first thing was pray and meditate after I wrote everything down and asked myself a million times, Melody, where are you headed? What's next for you? Because my life turned into like a twister, which I did not expect. It has a lot of turns, a lot. It's like riding a roller coaster that I don't know where it's gonna end. It was scary for me. It was disheartening at some point, and at some point, I did. I wanted to give up. I wanted to give up. I I'm trying not to trying not to get emotional here. It it tested me to a point where I thought I would never make it this far. Put it that way. But I had to make tough choices. I had to choose the right people in terms of friends and support system and left behind the ones that wasn't really there for me or didn't or tried to, pull me down, in other words. So it's tough because that's why it's called crisis. At that age, you're really deciding because what you choose at that time will definitely lead you to where you want to be later on in your life. So when you visualize something in your future, what is it that you want? Is it a successful to have a successful career, to have ample means to where you can be comfortable every single day in your life, to have your own house and have a family in there someday. So when you think about that, now you can think of the steps. How do I get there? What do I need to do first? Well, in terms of with EJ, since of course with if you want to be a father someday, a good husband, then they have with wives, future wife or future partner, they'll have expectations. Same thing with a future wife or future partner. You think, okay, I want to be able to support my future husband. I don't want to be dependent on him. So with guys, it's more on I want to be able to provide
Mhm.
for my family. So that alone, you already can break down where you want or where to head in terms of that aspect in your life. But right now, I think both of you, you're more focused on your finances and career, if I'm not mistaken. Love will come along
I think for me, I
someday,
needed
someday,
to
somehow.
hear.
But when, yeah,
Mhm.
but when you focus on yourself first, that's the most important. So, EJ, I believe in you. You just have to believe in yourself and take that opportunity and go for it. There's nothing wrong. If in case it wasn't for you or you didn't like it or you don't like it, then at least you've learned and you'll grow from it.
I think I
You'll
needed to
grow
hear
from that.
that. Just try, right? Just try.
Yeah. No, I'm serious. Just you know how when you before you dive in the pool you check for the temperature, right? But
Mhm.
sometimes people just dive in and they don't care. And they don't
That
even know how deep it is or they're not sure if
ironically,
they
it's
even
what
know
I
how to
do in the
swim.
pool because I know that I'm gonna feel cold if I go slow, so I just jump in so that I don't feel cold
If
in the
there's
water.
yeah, if there's one thing I can share with both of you is life is uncertain, but when you're certain of yourself and what you want, you'll get there. you'll definitely get there to where you need to be because you know what you want. You know what you're after. You just have to keep working at it and never doubt yourself and never, never stop believing that one day you'll get there. As long as you work hard for something, I'm a believer as of you putting the effort. When you put in the effort, whether if it was meant for you or not, it's still part of your growth. It'll teach you something. You'll get something from it. You will either learn from it. And it took me a long time to realize that even though failures are part of life, they're not so bad after all because they've taught me how to be a better person. They've taught me so much growth. And it also led me to so many people that I care about now that are part in my life. And of course, both of you as well. And this program.
Can I just go back to what you said earlier, Melvi? Because if there's anything that I'll take away from today's show is what you said about when you're wherever it is, the goals that you're pursuing or whatever may be your end game is that you don't lose yourself. That hit home so much for me because I feel like that's a lot of what happens when we get into that mindset of comparison or just looking at what everyone else is doing, and then we lose the core of who we are, and especially as Christians, right? Because
Yes.
when we're trying to pursue these different things and we think that we want this thing, we think that we want this thing, but when you actually get to write down what you want based off of what's important to you, what your values are, and all of those things that align together, that's really what can help you be more focused, right? To be more focused in terms of what you want your life to look like. And that idea of not losing yourself, because I've always been in the camp of I don't want to become a successful person at the price of losing who I wanted to be, right? Like being able to have the character that I want to be as a daughter, as a friend, as whoever it may be, right? To anyone, it could be even as a neighbor, whatever, right? There are certain things that are in my mind non-negotiable for me that are based off my principles, that are based off of my core values that I don't want to compromise in the pursuit of different goals. And I feel like that can happen to a lot of us with the pressure of that idea of being in a crisis, right? When you're presented with whether it's comparison, whether it's different choices that you see other people are doing, really being able to take a step back and asking yourself, like, what do you actually want? Do you want those things because you see other people have it, or do you want it because you actually want it? Especially as a Christian, right? Because being able to hold on to who you are through everything, like to me, that's like the greatest strength that I always try to aspire for. And that's my reminder, dealing with the crisis. Like you may be in crisis and you may be facing like indecision or all those challenging things, but that's my reminder. Like, thank you for saying that, like to not lose yourself, because you always want to be able to own who you are and stick with that, and still improve, of course, as an individual. But the core values that you have, like the principles that you stand on, like you want to be able to keep that. And that's something that's very reassuring to me coming out of today's broadcast, because it doesn't matter, whatever path I might end up pursuing career wise or what my future might look like, but not losing myself as who I am and as a Christian. That's like the best reminder for me. So thank you for that. Thank you for saying that.
Welcome. I know it's hard to sometimes think, or even when you go through that process, I'm gaining this, but something is being compromised. So now you have to reset and reflect. But again, all I can say is having a good character and never compromise, like I said earlier, what Tony just mentioned, not losing yourself, not losing who you are, especially our values when it comes to being a Christian and our own our own, even our own thoughts and emotions, because we're presented with daily challenges. And so it all depends on also how we act or react. So we always have to be mindful and be self aware. Once you're self aware, once you have that self awareness, it helps navigate a lot of things in life, whatever challenges that may be, whatever you're facing at the moment. Because now it's not, sometimes it's hard to have, and sometimes we will forget at the moment. But I'm also a believer of there's no new set of behaviors that we cannot learn unless we're willing to do so. Because in order to live life to the fullest nowadays, we really have to be so much stronger. We're beset with so many different difficulties, tribulations, challenges on a daily basis. And it's very hard sometimes to overcome them because we're only human. But when when that when those things present themselves, we now have to now also prepare ourselves and have all the tools we need, and also help from others to be able to continuously improve, overcome them, and live a fulfilling life. So, and one more thing is, just don't give up. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep trying. I'm still doing what I'm doing. I'm also still learning on a daily basis. I still want growth, but at the same time, I'm also now learning to be so much stronger than I was before at your age, because life is in a complete, I guess you can say, a stage now compared to when I was younger. And I do feel for the young adults nowadays, because of, like what you said, it's hard not to compare, especially when social media is constantly in front of us, or people saying this, or doing that. But no, we don't need to compare ourselves, because each of us are special in our own way. And remember that too. You have your own thing going on. Don't look at others. Just let's focus on ourselves.
Focus on your own crisis. Focus on your own crisis.
Because can you imagine if you're focusing on everyone else's crisis too? That's not going to get us anywhere in life. we'll just we'll just sit there and start sulking and crying, and maybe, oh gosh, no, we don't want that. We want positivity. We want, you know productivity in our lives, of course. So,
Mhm.
but
Thank you again. First, I want to thank both of you for sharing your answers, sharing your thoughts here in our show today, as well as for our viewers. I know some of you shared your thoughts as well there. We've been reading them, and Kuyaron, I do see that that what do you call that? I'll remember it later, and then I'll mention it. But I do see it in the live chat as well. So again, we hope that our viewers, you learned something from here today. If not learned, maybe a reminder that you needed to hear from our show today. So thank you for joining us again to another episode of INCRadio's Chatline. We do hope to see you again next week. So bye everyone. Have a great weekend.
This is what I ask. Let me always dwell in the temple of the Lord till I breathe my last.
Looking for more conversations that matter? INC Radio Chatline, Fridays at 8 p.m. Pacific or 11 p.m. Eastern at INC Radio DZEM 954 on YouTube.
This is INC Radio DZEM 954, the voice of truth the official radio station of the Church of Christ, or